talking now with Herb Rippe, who is a candidate for Port Waterway. I always wanted the Port Waterway Board, Port.
It's Port Waterway and Waterway, Port, Beach, and Waterway, and I am running for re-election to seat 3, and I am the current chairman of the Port, Beach, and Waterway.
Okay. Do you want to tell us first off why you're running? Or not?
No, I'd be glad to do that. I look at it this way. I get asked this question a lot because the compensation at best is minimal. My wife volunteers for the Council on Aging. I volunteer for Port and Waterway. To me, it's a way to give back to the community.
Okay. And you've been on. You were elected.
I was first elected in 2010.
Okay. This is every 2-year thing?
4.
Okay.
And you're the chair?
I am the chair.
What does that entail? What kind of greater power does that give you?
Port and Waterway has no staff per se, right? The chairman is, in essence, the CEO, is allowed to go out and make things happen for the public. Any commissioner can go and do something on his own as a commissioner, right? The chairman can go and act on behalf of Port and Waterway. A couple examples. We have a lot of people concerned about beach erosion on the north side of Volano to South Ponte Vedra. And I recently went to the Army Corps of Engineers and asked them to help with some permits for those people. And I also went and asked them to repair the north jetty. And that was something that we hadn't talked about as commissioners in our meetings, but I felt like it was something appropriate to do.
Is that repairing that jetty or rebuild it? I mean, there's not really much of a jetty.
Not much of a jetty left. And actually, as a point of interest, it's not really a jetty. It's what they call a groin. And this is new learning for me also. After I went to the Army Corps of Engineers, they said a jetty is primarily for navigational purposes. A groin, which is what we have up there, is actually to inhibit sand movement. And the problem that we have there is that groin has deteriorated, never been worked on or repaired, right? And we're getting a lot of sand in our inlet. So we've asked them to repair it. Versus building a new one, there's some difference in budgeting for the Army Corps of Engineers. And probably 90 days ago, there was an act that was approved that said the Army Corps needed to spend 10% of their budget for low commercial inlets. That's what we are, a low commercial inlet, right? Prior to this, it's been very difficult to get the Army Corps to take any action because all of their resources have been focused on high commercial activities, Jacksonville, Miami, the Ohio River, right? And so for the first time, we may have some money available to take care of people or take care of inlets like St. Augustine that are considered low commercial. So the budgeting process for the Army Corps is if we wanted them to build a new one, we would have to come up with matching funds, right? And it would be incredibly expensive. Versus if they repair, it comes out of their maintenance and repair budget, and it's 100% on the Army Corps no matching funds required. We're probably talking about millions of dollars here, so we'd prefer no matching funds.
Mhm. You know, it almost seems to me like it's a catch-22 for you guys, because if you rebuild the groin,
Yeah,
the jetty,
yeah,
then you stop the inlet from silting in or sanding in.
right.
But then almost all of the beach renourishment to the south beaches is from sand from the inlet being pumped up there to renourish the beaches. So
Well,
you know, you see what I'm saying? You're almost
that's a serious misconception.
okay.
For the last 15 years or so, right, prior to 2012, all the sand for renourishment of St. Augustine Beach came from what they called the Ebb Shoal. The Ebb Shoal is outside of the inlet, at the very end of the inlet and to the south of the inlet, right? The process for 2012, the plan for 2012 was to go dig another hole in the Ebb Shoal and put it on St. Augustine Beach, right? As a commissioner, at that point I was not chairman, but as a commissioner, I decided that was not a good plan. 2010, we had 7 boats run aground in St. Augustine Inlet. Our inlet had a terrible, terrible reputation, and it was getting worse. There was actually insurance companies for large yachts that wouldn't let their yachts come in, wouldn't enforce their insurance if they came into St. Augustine Inlet. It was that bad. So in 2012, when I heard the plan was dig a hole in the ocean, put it on the beach, I said, that's got to change. And as a commissioner, I went to every government agency involved, the DEP, the Army Corps of Engineers, the county. I mean, it was half a dozen. And I gained concurrence from everybody after many weeks of work. I mean, 40-hour weeks of work, right? That they would take the sand from the inlet and put it on St. Augustine Beach. The cost was virtually the same. That dredging was about 2.4 million cubic yards. Of that, they took 1,800,000 out of our inlet at $10 a cubic yard. I feel like I saved the taxpayers $18 million by getting them to take the sand out of the inlet. And also, taking that sand out of the inlet got our inlet a great reputation. I mean, that inlet is an economic engine for this port district, and people don't realize how important it is. It supports our fishing fleets, our recreational fleets. We have 13,000 registered boat owners in St. Augustine County. We have 8,000 transient boats that come through here a year. That inlet is responsible for a huge economic impact. And by the way, that inlet is the reason the Port District was created in 1937. That's our job. Take care of that inlet. Number one priority, bar none. So I felt proud. I felt like after that incident with the, getting everybody to take the sand from the inlet and put it on St. Augustine Beach, it said to me that one person can make a difference. And I'm proud of that. I'm absolutely proud of what I was able to achieve there.
Well, that's actually what I asked you, was exactly what you said. Because if we build a groin, the idea is to stop the inlet from getting sand in it. And
right.
I'm just saying, I suppose if you wanted to, you would just have to go dredge somewhere else in order to do the beach stuff. But
Right now, the
this
Army
is-
Corps of Engineers is looking at another site off of St. Augustine Beach, which I personally think would be a mistake. We have a lot of sand in what everybody else calls the intercoastal, what the professionals call the flood shoals. But if you go over the Volano Bridge at low tide, look out there. There's plenty of sand out there, right? And I am trying to drive the Army Corps of Engineers, the county, and anybody else that will listen to come take that sand out of the flood shoals. It's starting to impede our navigation there. But to your point, the inlet management plan now only allows us to take, I think it's about 285,000 cubic yards a year out of our inlet. 285,000 cubic yards a year. First of all, it's not enough, right? It's not enough to renourish St. Augustine Beach, that's for sure. I mean, they're putting 2, and some of the dredgings have been up to 4 million cubic yards. It doesn't work. So my preference would be, let's keep the inlet clean. When it's accumulated enough sand in the future to put on St. Augustine Beach, we'll use it again. And in the meantime, let's find some cost-effective sources. Let's use the flood shoals, and let's try any way that we can to make the government use our tax dollars as wisely as possible. I mean, when they took the sand out of the inlet, the taxpayers got a twofer. They got a 2-for-1, right? They put it on St. Augustine Beach. They were going to pay to do that anyway. We would have had to pay to have the inlet dredged. So those are the kind of things that in this position as part of Port and Waterway, you get to impact. And you ask me why I run? It's things like this. You feel like you're doing something positive.
Herbie, what are your thoughts on expanding the taxing district beyond what it is now?
Yeah, it's one of my personal priorities. Here's part of what has me concerned. You got Nocatee up north. I think Nocatee is 15,000 home sites. Is that about right?
Yes.
That's about 45,000 people. Who's gonna help these people with water access and water safety? And by the way, water access is a quality of life issue, whether you are a boater or not, right? If you have water access and you have your property is close to the water and you can get to it, it raises the value of everybody's property. And so that's the area I worry about the most, is up around Nocatee, and the fact that they don't have any local representation that is kind of looking out for their boating abilities, if you will.
So are you saying that you would support expanding it?
Yes, I would.
Is it expanding it to Nocatee, or is it expanding it countywide?
I think the preference would be countywide, because I think there's some good things that we could do over on the St. Johns River as well. It's a complex issue, and it's one that, frankly, I'm personally just learning about. How do you go about doing this, right? I don't fully understand the process. I know what it takes. I know it takes the Florida legislature to grant this, right? I don't know what it takes to get the Florida legislature to grant this. That's the learning part that we're under right now.
Well, you probably just lost your 500-pound gorilla to their shoe.
So what are the priorities then if you had that other revenue? What would be the things you'd spend the money on?
Well, I think the first thing would be a comprehensive look at that Nocatee area. And what are they, we typically support things like water access, safety patrol. I mean, we support St. Johns County Police Department with overtime, the St. Augustine Police Department with overtime. We support Fish and Wildlife, right? And right now, we don't provide that level of service to those people up north. But water access projects, particularly, I think are particularly important up there because I think they're limited. I think they're very limited up north.
So you know, like a boat ramp or
Exactly,
water park?
exactly. Much like, we just, in this year's budget, we're helping to repair the lighthouse boat ramp, right? But, water access, I think, is important because it's a quality of life issue.
Do the developers in the Nocatee area or the county own any waterfront property currently that could be developed?
It's not an area that I have gained a complete understanding. Yeah, right now it's not in the district, right? And that's part of the learning that we have to go through.
Sure. Okay.
Some people say, and I ask everybody this question too, that Salt Run is kind of a pet pupil of the board. They fund a lot of projects in Salt Run and not so much other places, that they fund Salt Run because Addie New Salem and rich folks live on Salt Run. Do you want to comment on it? I mean, I'm telling you what they say. So
Right.
I'm asking.
Right. I actually hadn't heard that before, but Salt Run, I don't know. As far as I know, the only thing that we've done on Salt Run is we've dredged it, right?
The channel.
And we've dredged it. Actually, that's not true. You start thinking about it. We dredged channels. We maintain the markers in Salt Run, and I got to admit, I'm not sure why. I mean, because we don't maintain the markers in the intercoastal, but for some reason I think the Army Corps doesn't feel that they need to maintain the markers in Salt Run, so Port and Waterway has taken up that responsibility. The lighthouse project, boat dock, boat ramp in Salt Run, but those are projects that we've done for other areas, right? I mean, boat ramps and docks. We helped with the Volano boat dock. We helped people put addresses. If any of you are boaters, if you're on the intercoastal now, a lot of the docks actually have street addresses on them. Why? So that somebody gets in trouble on the water, where are you, right? And they look at one of these signs and they can get help. So I don't know as we do anything special for Salt Run.
Okay, that's a good answer.
What do you see are the top one or two areas or opportunities to improve over the next couple of years, or the biggest obstacles or challenges you'll be facing?
Right now, excuse me, right now probably the top 3 items on my list are, one, getting some permits, helping the homeowners in South Ponte Vedra and Volano get some permits so that they can get sand on their beaches. I mean, you have to understand right now, if there was dredging that was going on out on the intercoastal right now, they couldn't put sand on their beaches. They have no permits. We have to get them permits. They need permits. 2 would be getting that the groin fixed, and what that will do is that will back some sand up north, right? And then 3 would probably be expanding the district.
I heard years ago, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember 15 or 20 years ago, that's always come up from time to time, expanding, and they had done the port knew what expanding the district would mean in terms of new tax revenue? Do y'all have that figure now? I mean, it was like it was gonna go from, you know, you
No,
were getting 11%
I don't
of the
know.
population.
I don't know what the tax revenue is. You know, our tax rate has remained unchanged since I've been on the board at .0637, .0637.
But you guys have like,
We have just under $400,000 a year that come into our budget a year.
but you have like 11 or 12,000 people in the district or something. I mean, they used to have a figure.
Yeah.
And then if you look at
And I'm sorry, but
190,000,
I don't know what that.
That'd be a good one to have.
It would,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you're looking
And
at-
as we start moving in this direction, I think we will gain those understandings.
Yeah.
It's all part of the homework you have to do, right? I mean,
Yeah. You want to talk about it's being brought up, there's a little bit of animosity or some of the way that Jerry came out to run against you and resigned his seat to come out there. Is that, do you want to talk about that?
you know,
Jerry didn't get, by the way, nobody's getting ugly about it. He says you guys get along fine. You have some philosophical differences. But
I think we do have some
Okay.
philosophical differences, and it was a surprise to me. Personally, I sit in these meetings and I speak my mind, and so does Jerry, right? Why Jerry chose to run again. I think that's the way the process is supposed to work, right? I mean, you're a five-person, commission. You're going to have differences. I was shocked when I found out Jerry was running against me. I've not asked him why, and I think it's one of those things you let the voters sort it out.
if you don't get elected, can you take the financial hit?
Well, I'll have some.
How much is the money? How much you gonna
It's like
pay?
$5 a meeting, but there's 12 meetings a year, so it's and there is a small travel allowance, but it's not. As I said earlier,
Are you a voter?
I moved here. I moved here for the water, right? And there are a lot of people here like me that live here for the waterway. I mean, if the waterway wasn't here, my wife and I would not be living here. It's about that simple. And I've been a boater my entire life, and I feel like what we have here is so special. And I want to see it taken care of. I want to see it used. I want to see it respected by our people. It does amaze me that so many people don't understand how important our waterways are. To me, again, it's why I live here. So.
What do you think differentiates you from Mr. Dixon as a candidate?
I work at it. I spend an incredible amount of my personal time. I talked about getting the plan changed so that the sand was taken out of the inlet. I put in excess of 150 hours into that. All right? In between port meetings, I typically put in quite a few hours, whether it's talking to the Army Corps or to, try to get things done, right? But I work at it. And as much as I respect Jerry, he's got a full-time job, and I don't get the same level of commitment.
Okay.
When do you anticipate the next dredging and sand renourishment in San Augustine Beach? Is that timetable changed at all? I mean, it happened just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the last one was in 2012. I understand that there is work underway right now by the Army Corps of Engineers and the county. And right now, they're out looking for donor sites.
So everything seems to be on track for the next one?
It does, but I can't tell you that I know the schedule.
And has everything kind of calmed down with the Volano owners that, of course, it delayed, I think, the last renourishment?
Well, the Volano owners, Volano South Ponte Vedra people, are happy with the inlet management plan, all right? Because what the inlet management plan says, let me back up. What the inlet management plan used to say was all the sand that we dredged, whether it came out of the intercoastal or the inlet, had to go south, right? And I spent 2 days, 2 full days, with more PhDs in coastal engineering, read that sand movement, right? I mean, I spent 2 full days with these guys trying to sort out this inlet management plan. And by the way, nobody else from the port bothered to show up to those meetings, right? And the learning there was that the net movement of sand is south, right? But in fact, sand moves both ways. And that the beaches in the north were eroding, right? But that the beaches in the south were eroding twice as fast. So part of the inlet management plan now says that 1/3 of the sand that comes out of that inlet needs to go north, right? 2/3 of that sand needs to go south. Now, right now, the people in Volano and South Ponte Vedra, even if there was dredging, they can't put sand on their beach because they don't have permits, right? I mean, that's step one. Get them some, get them some permits. What the people in Volano and South Ponte Vedra have not figured out is, once they get permits, how do they get sand? Who's going to pay, right? Whoever put together the plan and got St. Augustine Beach listed as a critically eroded beach and got them as part of the shore protection plan, I don't know who that was. They ought to have a big plaque on City Hall for these people that did this, because that was a Herculean effort, that took years. I'd like to help the Volano South Ponte Vedra people, and I am, in terms of getting them permits, but the next challenge is, how are they going to get sand? And I don't know how they're going to do that. I just don't.
Well, up there, I mean, there's sort of 2 issues, I think, and you guys we're going to meet. What's happening with them is they're getting permits now just to maybe just drop rocks. They're getting permits. They're trying to get permits to just stop it.
They've got 2.
So are you working only on
No.
Are you helping them permit immediate
No.
mitigation?
They have 2 actions that they're focused on up there right now. One is some portion of the people up there, and by the way, I've gone up there and walked those beaches. I mean, these people are getting ready to lose their homes, right? It's scary if you go up there and walk that beach and look at what these people are facing. If I lived there, I would be very afraid. So there's 2 actions that are in process up there. One is, a lot of these people are trying to get permits to armor their beach, right?
And many have. I've been in several houses.
Many have, and some people are just caught in a quagmire right now, right? And I have not participated with those people. That's kind of a private endeavor, right? But the second item, which is the permits, I feel like we have a role, and I'd like to help.
Great.
You got anything else?
Yes. The current structure of the commission has been such that it's the 5-person board. You don't have any employees or anything. Do you see that changing, or do you think it's adequately represented the needs of the people, and are you effectively able to take care of business under its present structure?
The present structure has its challenges. And those challenges stem from the Sunshine Law, right? Because if there's something going on, a good example, when I was working on changing the plan for dredging to get them to dredge to the inlet, I couldn't talk to any of my other commissioners. Right? That's a problem, right? I mean, you got something that's going on. Now you can always call an emergency meeting, I suspect, right? But if you're looking for guidance, right? If you're looking for ideas and you know, things going on, that's a problem. The Sunshine Law, while I understand it and respect it, causes some challenges with a small organization like us. I would like to see us get an executive director of some sort that would be a part-time position, right? I think it would help. I think it would help because I think we'd get more done. And I don't think the cost would be that outrageous.
Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
Personally?
Yeah.
No. I'm not. I don't have a job. I've been retired since 2005, and I really don't want a job. Port and Waterway eats into my life enough that I'm totally satisfied.
So just make sure I understand this. So your thing is, if you got a hired employee, whatever you call it, they could interact with all the commissioners when none of you can interact. That would be because they're not
Right.
They're not elected.
Right.
They're not under the Sunshine Law.
Exactly.
So
That's exactly
it
right.
Sort of
Right.
makes it kind of-
And I mean, that's what our county commission does. That's what a lot of large commissions do, right? And they're intermediaries. You know, they go and they work with all the different commissioners. They get the lay of the land, and then they go, you know, probably in concert with the chairman, go take some action. And right now, the legwork that needs to be done, you know, be it expanding the port district. A lot of learning to do there, right? Right now, it's got to be a commissioner, you know, that takes that time and goes out and does that, right? I think people would be better served if we had a at least part-time executive director.
If you don't get reelected, will you stay involved?
I've been entertaining buying a boat and going out and doing some cruising. So if I don't get elected, listen, I follow politics. I follow St. Augustine politics. I follow St. Johns County politics. I like knowing what's going on. If I don't get elected to Port and Waterway, I'll follow it, but I will probably not be actively involved.
I found the website, there's a very good website for anybody that's watching the video at home, and you can just Google St. Augustine Port. Is that maintained by the city or the DEP or?
No, as a matter of fact, that website was put together by a local company, and I am basically the architect.
Okay.
I took the challenge basically from the other commissioners to look at that website, disband our old website, put together a new one, and the attempt there was to put together a website that boaters, that people that were interested in the marine industry would find of value. And I think it has a lot more There's a lot more work that could be done. It could be better, but I think it's a whole lot better than it was. So,
No, it's got great information. It has the inlet management implementation plan that
Right.
you referenced several times.
Right.
And a lot of the DEP sites on there, and some nice maps.
right, right.
Yeah, I found it very useful. So
Well, thank you.
Good job.
When was it
Thank you.
redone?
Probably about 2 years ago.
Okay. And you worked with a web designer? sort of?
Yeah. And I'd love to give them the press if I could remember their name.
I'm sure it's located at the bottom of the homepage.
It is. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, what did you do for a living before you retired and moved down here?
My background is I was in the Navy, went to the University of Cincinnati, worked for Xerox for a while, worked for Texas Instruments for a while, went to Emerson Electric, and when I retired, I was running an electronic controls company for them, electronic controls division. We made controls that control things like air conditioning, building controls, air conditioning, refrigeration, and energy management systems, that type of stuff. Mostly 2/3 of the engineering staff was software, 1/3 was hardware. But it was a global business. It was a fun business.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
How'd you find us, or excuse me, how'd you find St.?
St. Augustine. I was living in Atlanta at the time. They had a serious drought on Lake Lanier. My boat was put on the ground, and my wife and I started talking, and we said, you know what, we're going to retire. Why don't we start looking for a place, and maybe we can make it a weekend place also. And we decided we wanted Northeast Florida because of the lower population density and the proximity to the Caribbean if we were going to go do some cruising. And so we started up at Amelia Island, and we just kept working our way down the coast, and we just take a weekend. And we got to St. Augustine, and my wife looked at this condo that was overlooking the intercoastal, and she said, we can stop looking. And so we bought here in 2002, kept it as a weekend place, and then we moved down here full-time in 2005.
Are you up on North Beach? Up on-
No, I was. The original place that we bought was up at Villages of Alano.
Mhm.
And right now, we live in a condominium that is on the water right next to the Fountain of Youth.
Oh, yeah, radio.
It's a Radio Road, exactly. Yeah, it's the site of the XWFOY radio station,
Historic thing.
site of Billy Graham's first radio ministry. He used to preach there, I guess, while he was going to the University of Florida. And Ray Charles used to play there live on a regular basis. So it's a very historical site.
It's a pretty area.
And as an aside, this is funny because we have a dock that is 750 feet long, and at low tide, when you walk out there are 33 1/3 record albums
Oh my God.
all over. I don't know what went on.
I tell you what, the guys who worked there didn't know what
Take
went
a
on
picture.
after.
I want a picture of that. Kind of cool.
I mean, they're all warped and stuff in the mud, but yeah, it's the old WFOY radio site.
Wow.
So,
Well, thank you very much
Yeah.
for coming in and talking with us.
well, thank you.
Is there anything important we didn't ask you that you'd like to add? That has been known to happen.
I guess just one more item, because it was important to me. But I've spent a lot of time driving Port and Waterway to more fiscal responsibility. And by that I mean the process when I got to Port and Waterway was one of people would come and they'd ask us for money, and we'd listen and we'd say yes sir, we'd say no, right? And then next month somebody else would come and ask us for money and we'd say yes or we'd say no, right? I come from a business background, right? I can't do business that way. I kind of like to plan, and I like to look at the big picture, and you know, my whole career I've had to budget, right? I've had to prioritize. And for the first time this year, we put in a process, a budget prioritization process, where basically twice a year, if people expect to get money from Port and Waterway, they need to come see us. They need to kind of get in line. They need to give us the merits of their program, right?
For a business plan.
And then we'll stack them up. You know, business does it that way. Tourist Development Council does it that way. Fine does it that way. And I found I couldn't deal with it the way it was on, you know, on the port. I felt like we have an obligation to deeply understand what it is we're spending our money on, right? You know, B, I think we have an obligation, except for in extreme emergencies, to stay within our budget, right? And C, I think we have an obligation to kind of pick the best of the best, you know, as to where we're going to spend our taxpayers' money. And so I'm proud of that. Another commissioner, Chuck Hennessy, worked very hard on that. We had a workshop on that to put together the plan. Jerry Dixon didn't show up, by the way. So it's something I'm proud of that we've done, and just overall, I've been trying to improve the processes, you know, that the port uses to get better outcomes for our taxpayers.
Is it fair to say that the board is kind of at a crossroads now where you got the good old boys and the new old boys? Is it teetering on a kind of a vote where there's that sort of philosophical split?
That's a good question. I don't know if that would be the right demarcation, but clearly, in my opinion, there is opportunity for growth and better processes on this board.
Were you ever the diplomatic service?
No.
Okay, because you're good at it.
Well, well, I mean, but I'm honest about you know, the way I feel, and I'm not looking to slam anybody. I just feel like we need to be the best we can be. And we need to do the best job we can do for the taxpayers. If we're not going to do that, in my estimation, now to just keep the $5.
That's a great quote.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Oh, one more thing. You still recording? All right. When you go to the voting booth on November 4th, letter Rippe.
You used to-